Good morning. My name is Chef Abby and I'm coming to you here from our St. Mary's campus in our beautiful 5-degree weather today. I have Stacy Klosterman with me today. So she will be helping me prep for an 80th birthday dinner for one of our residents, and we are in, where are we today?
We are in 508 Dove Lane, one of our beautiful patio homes here on the campus. So Chef Abby is taking over the kitchen today, and just maybe she'll let me be her sous chef today.
Sounds like a plan. So we're gonna start where all birthday parties should, which is dessert. So today we're gonna be making homemade pecan pie. So Stacy's gonna help me out with that a little bit. So pecan pie is definitely close to my family. So this is one of our kind of heritage recipes that started off with my great-grandma, my grandma, my mom, and now I'm passing it on to myself as well as you guys out there. So we're gonna start by adding the pecans to our pie shells. I do things a little bit differently. I like a graham cracker crust with my pecan pie. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna have Stacy put the pecans into the pie shells. So you're gonna go about 3/4 of the way on those shells.
I've never made pecan pie before, so first time for me.
Looks good. And you can use any kind of pecans you want. So today we have pecan halves. But you can use, you can use chopped pecans, you can use more whole pecans, whatever you like the best. One of my favorite memories from pecan pie growing up is sneaking over to the counter right after it finished baking and grabbing one of the pecans off the top, which always drove my mom and my grandma, my aunts nuts, but it's one of my favorite things to do. So now we're gonna go ahead and start with the base of the pecan pie, and this is a 2-pie recipe. So the number one thing we're gonna add, and it's my special ingredient, is maple syrup. So a lot of pecan pies start with Cairo syrup or corn syrup, but I don't like that. I think that something more natural like a maple syrup just gives the pie more flavor. We're also going to add in here, this is a mixture of brown sugar, cinnamon, and salt. We're gonna add that right in there. And then I have 3 teaspoons of vanilla. So we're gonna add that in. And then while I am cutting up the butter that's gonna go in this, I'm going to have Stacy crack 6 eggs for me and go ahead and put them in there. You can put your shells right there.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think what's neat about this is, we're doing this for an 80th birthday party.
Yes.
And food is a big focus here at Otterbein, and residents have a lot of different ways that they can enjoy food here, whether it be in the restaurant, at a holiday party. But I think when we talk about the culinary experience is that this resident came to Abby and we are able to provide this made from scratch meal for a special occasion that is important to them. They could have very easily went to a restaurant or just ordered food in, but they're allowing us to do that for them, and that's really taking the experience to the next level.
I think one of the other really special things to note about this specific circumstance is one of this family member's loved ones resides in our healthcare area. So something as simple as going to a restaurant isn't quite as simple for them. So we are bringing that restaurant style experience to them here at Otterbein, so that way they don't have to go out in this 5-degree weather today, and they can just enjoy their meal while they're here. So I've just added the butter to this pecan pie. I'm just gonna give this a good stir.
And is this regular crust or graham cracker crust?
Graham cracker.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the way I like to do it.
Two things I've learned today: graham cracker crust and maple syrup.
Yes, the maple syrup is really what will make this pie into something special. Another note is I like the nuts in my pie to go all the way through. So some people would just do the syrup and then, or the base of the pie.
Kind of float on top.
Yes, I don't operate that way. We need it all, So that's something that we're gonna do too. So I'm just gonna break this butter up a little bit because it's kind of sticking. And then we're just gonna ladle this syrup over the top of the pie. Make sure we get all that egg worked in there. The egg is gonna be what helps thicken the pie.
And it almost makes like a custard type
Yes.
filling, right?
Yep. So this is ready to go. So I'm just gonna take my ladle here and start ladling this over the top of the nuts here.
So what may be some other, this is for an 80th birthday party, but what are some other things that your culinary team, that they get to do for the residents? In the circumstances like this where we're really just kind of giving them this dining experience?
So one of the things that we've done just recently was a Super Bowl party. So we helped out with that. We do a lot of lane parties and block parties for a lot of our residents. We've done birthday parties, we've done death celebrations. So for the longest time, one of our residents' wives passed away. So every year on her anniversary, we would do an anniversary party for their street. And that was really special to be a part of. All right, so these pecan pies are actually ready to go. So we are going to set them to the side, and these will go in a 350-degree oven for about an hour.
350 for 1 hour.
Those look so good. I'm sad that I don't get a piece of them. Maybe I'll have to go to the party. And then we are going to switch tasks. So while those are baking is a great time for you to do some extra prep. So typically I bake my pies a day in advance or in the morning of. It just depends. It also gives you just a little bit of time if anything weird happens. So, if you were to burn the pie or your oven's not working or something strange happens, it just gives you a little bit of recovery time in case, you need to run to the store and get a different pie if you need to, or get another round of ingredients.
Are the pies better if they sit longer? Do they have a chance to set up?
Yeah, usually they need to sit up for at least an hour just to kind of give it a little bit more time to kind of adjust.
Okay.
So the next thing we're going to do is prep our veggies. So this resident specifically requested fresh roasted veggies. So that can mean a lot of different things, but I just went with my favorites, which hopefully will be their favorites as well. So the first thing we're going to do is add some mushrooms. So these are baby Bella mushrooms. Something I just learned this year is Bella just means beautiful. And so portobello mushrooms are really just beautiful mushrooms. There's not really a specific type of mushroom. They're just a beautiful mushroom. So I thought that was kind of a fun fact that I learned from one of the chefs this year. We're also going to add in some tomatoes. These are some big cherry tomatoes. So we're going to cut these in half. I'm just going to do that quickly here.
What would you say, what has been one of the most challenging requests that you have been asked?
That's a good question. I really like when people kind of ask questions outside of the box. So this specific resident for this party, they wanted a flourless chocolate cake. I'm not much of a baker. I can do it, but mainly like heritage recipes, like I said earlier, where it's things that I'm already used to cooking. So flourless chocolate cake is just not in my wheelhouse of cards. Okay. And so instead I said, how about homemade pecan pie? And so we kind of worked together to come up with
compromise.
Yes, yeah, to make it easier for all of us. And we'll switch to the bigger knife here. So I just finished up with the tomatoes, and then I'm also going to add some pepper. There is a million different ways that you can cut a pepper. This is just the way I like to do it. So that way the seeds stay right in the middle and I don't have to deal with them.
I am learning all kinds of things today.
So I'm just gonna give these a quick slice. Nothing fancy.
I cut peppers a lot at home, and I find I'm picking up seeds and finding a place to put them. They can get annoying, those little pepper seeds.
Yes, they absolutely can. So these are just a rough slice. You can definitely be a little bit more meticulous if you want to. It's just not really my style. These are all gonna get roasted together. So the main thing that we need is them to be decently equal size, so that way when we go to cook the veggies, it doesn't take quite as long. So the next thing we're gonna do is cut an onion. So I'm just gonna cut the bottom off and the root end off and put those to the side. And then I'm gonna give it a whack down the middle and peel it.
So what I find cooking veggies at home is certain vegetables cook at different speeds. So what is the secret to finding the right balance of making sure everything cooks through and is at the right texture when it's ready to eat?
That's a great question. So the main thing is size. So like this onion, if I were to do a super small dice on this onion and have it right alongside a piece of pepper, that's about a 1/2 inch strip, then my onion's gonna burn before my pepper is ready. So what I'm gonna do is cut these sections really similar to the size that I cut my peppers. So that way it's similar size here.
Are you do you like your veggies soft, or do you like them to have a little bit of crunch?
I definitely like a little bit of crunch. If there's any way that I can not have a steamed vegetable, that's what I'm gonna do. It's just not my favorite thing. So we're moving on to zucchini right here. So this zucchini is a really small one, definitely not a summer zucchini. So I'm just gonna cut this into 1/2 moons. So I'm gonna cut it down the middle. And then zucchini is one of those veggies that if you get it too small, it is going to just mush away. It's not gonna be anything. So I'm gonna make sure that I am not cutting this too small. So same exact thing. This is almost the exact same width as the pepper. So that's what I'm doing here.
So far we've got those beautiful Bella mushrooms. We've got some yellow pepper, some cherry tomatoes, onion, and zucchini. And again, as Abby has shared, cutting things to the same size to allow for even cooking.
I guess I should say too, the amount of people that are going to this party, because that's kind of important to be able to judge how much I need. So, I'm a professional, so I'm gonna cut 2 of these at one time, but if for any reason you don't feel comfortable, don't do that, because then you can get some really wonky sizes here. So I'm just gonna do the exact same thing with this yellow squash and cut it in similar sized pieces. There we go, that's looking good. So there's about 10 people coming to this party, and veggies are something that kind of shrinks. So we are going to probably look like we're kind of over prepping the vegetables, but when they get in the oven and they start to shrink, I don't want us to say, oh gosh, we don't have enough. So that's why we are doing a little bit extra today, just in case. It'd be nice if this was the middle of summer so we could have great summer veggies.
Grilled veggies, yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But these are gonna go into an oven, and these are just gonna be a really hot roasted oven veggie. So we're just gonna season these next. See what we're working with here. I think we could use another pepper, so that's what we're gonna do here. These are gonna go into a hot oven, and we're just gonna roast them until they start to get some color on them and they're at the doneness we want. The other thing to note too.
How hot? How hot is your oven?
Just depends. So if I'm baking the pie at 350, I might throw them in at 350, and then if I feel like they're not really doing anything, or if I'm getting impatient, which happens, then I would kick the oven up, or I would maybe even broil them. Another thing to note is a lot of these veggies that we're working with right now have very similar textures. So I wouldn't put something like a carrot into this mix, because then if I do use a carrot, then the carrot will be a lot more dense than these softer veggies. So then I'll have carrots that are raw and these veggies that are burning. So that's definitely.
What about like some broccoli or?
You absolutely could.
Okay.
You absolutely could.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give these a sprinkle of herb seasoning, and then Stacy, you want to give them a toss? You want a spoon? Yep.
So as you're all sitting in your homes today, and it's 5 degrees out, and you're anxiously awaiting the warmer weather, I'm staring down into this bowl of just bright colors. And don't they say like the more color in your food, the better it is? So I'm just gonna give you a close-up as you look at all these greens and reds and all these beautiful colors that are gonna taste so good.
Yep. So now we're just gonna set these to the side. Once I get ready, I'll put these on a cookie sheet or a roasting pan, and I'll put them in the oven. So for now, this is all we need to do with them. So we're just gonna set these to the side.
Okay. So dessert check. We went from dessert to immediately healthy with the vegetables.
So
it's about balance, right?
Yeah. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm going to have Stacy work on wrapping our sweet potatoes. So these sweet potatoes have already been washed, and they are just regular sweet potatoes. Another important thing, we tried to get some of very, very similar size, so that way they should be cooking almost all at the same time. If we were to have a bunch of different sizes of sweet potatoes, it'd be a lot more difficult to cook for a meal like this, because then some would be done early, some would not, and it'd just be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to have Stacy work on wrapping these with foil, and then we're going to have her put those into a pan.
Okay, so I have a question, because when I make potatoes at home, I pierce them with a knife or a fork.
Yeah, there's mixed kind of comments on whether you need to, whether you don't need to. I mean, it just depends what you want to do. I don't know that there's really a big difference between poking them, not poking them.
Okay.
I think wrapping them and not wrapping them is a very different conversation, as far as the foil helps to attract the heat to the potatoes and to help get it done all at the same time. If we were to not wrap these potatoes, the outside would get a lot crispier, and then you wouldn't necessarily want to eat the outside of it. But this way, you would probably be able to eat the outside if you wanted to as well.
Typically with a sweet potato, you don't have a crispy.
No, not that kind of like a, crispy shell, and then it just kind of looks kind of nice too. So when I get ready to plate these up, what I'm going to do is leave them in the foil, and I'm going to cut a slit across the top and then give it a little squeeze.
Okay.
So that way it looks really nice, and you get the combination of the foil, the orange, the brown. You're going to have the fresh veggies, and then we're going to have the chicken as well. So it's just going to really bring a lot of life to that plate. Okay, so I'm going to let Stacy work on that while I get switched out for my next task.
She's saving the best thing for last. Because on this campus, I would say that one of Abby's signature dishes, I'm gonna let her tell everyone what it is.
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to be making is chicken cordon bleu. I've talked a lot about heritage recipes. This recipe is kind of close to my heart too. So I've been making chicken cordon bleu for about 8 years now, which is the same amount of time that I've worked for Otter. So back when I first started at Otter, we had a chef at Lebanon. His name was Chef Joe DeSalvio. Loved him. He was great. But one of his special recipes was chicken cordon bleu, and it was a no-brainer. It's what we did for special occasions, so like Christmas or certain birthday parties, things like that. And so I've carried that tradition on to St. Mary's now and made chicken cordon bleu one of our signatures. The reason why it's a signature is because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of process. So it's not something that I just whip up on a Tuesday for fun. This is for a really special occasion. But chicken cordon bleu is something that you would find for our Christmas meal almost always, and usually maybe one time a year for something else by special request. So
How many, just for the record, this year for our Christmas parties for residents across all levels of care, Abby made these from scratch. How many do we think we made?
I think I made 350.
350 individual chicken cordon bleus. I've never seen her make these before, so I'm super excited to learn this. I've gotten to taste them, so it's so delicious. It's obviously something that is near and dear to Abby, that she's been making for a long time.
Yes. The one question I got during the Christmas season this year was, Abby, why? Why? Why are we doing this? And I had to explain to him the story I just told, as far as, this is what Christmas is to me. This is what Christmas is. So to serve something else would just be such a disservice, in my opinion, to the residents that live here, because this is what they deserve for a Christmas meal. So we are going to go ahead and get started here. So one thing to note too, we are going to be dealing with raw chicken. So we need to pay attention to what we're doing, okay? So the most important thing is pretty much anything that I'm going to touch during this process is either going to be washed, thrown away, or has to be used for this project. So like I'm going to get some cheese out, I'm going to get some ham out. I'm going to use most of those ingredients for this, and if not, I'm probably going to toss them when I'm done. So it's really important to be really conscious of your portioning when you're doing things like that. So I know right now that I think I'm going to make 10 pieces of chicken cordon bleu, at least that's what my package says. So I know that I have 8 pieces of cheese right here. And then I am going to get out 2 more, because that should be what I need.
Where are we having this 80th birthday party?
This is going to be in the Wisman room, which is one
Okay.
of our conference rooms.
Okay.
It's just where they decided to have it.
So nice thing is Abby, she allows her service to be portable. So, you know, whether it's for a lane party, whether it's for the shelter house at our outdoor amenity space, in one of the many rooms we have on Campus Center. That's a great thing, being a resident here, is having access to all of those spaces, and that we can make our services accessible in any of those situations. So that's a nice thing, is that we try to be as accommodating as we can in those situations.
Yes. Historically, for chicken cordon bleu, you would use Swiss cheese. It's what's the most kind of traditional, but I say that's boring, so I typically don't use Swiss cheese.
Swiss cheese is boring.
Yes. So today, instead, we're going to use a nice smoked Gouda. It's just going to give it some more flavor, honestly. If I had a smoked Swiss cheese, and maybe would be what I would use. I've also used Munster before. Munster has got great melting and great flavor and things like that. So I really like a Munster cheese as well. So we're all set up here with our
regular ham, honey ham, Virginia ham.
whatever you like.
Okay.
Whatever you like.
Okay.
In the past, a lot of times we use Canadian bacon, but it's ham. You know, it's just ham. So whatever we decide to use is totally fine here. So I've got my ham laid out. I've got my cheese laid out here. I'm going to use some picks to make sure that my chicken cordon bleu stays together. So I have those laid out right here too. And then I have some seasoning, and like I said, once I touch this with chicken fingers, it's gone. So I only have a small portion of seasoning instead of like a whole container or something like that, so that way I don't end up throwing away or cross-contaminating an entire thing of seasoning. So that's right here too. And then I have my chicken. So I have 10 thinly sliced chicken breasts, so that's what I'm going to use to make my chicken cordon bleu. Set one to the side and work on one at a time.
So would you recommend, like, these are thin sliced, so, you know, sometimes you buy a chicken breast at the store that is gigantic. So do you recommend cutting it in half and getting 2 out of 1 so that it's a thinner sliced piece of meat?
Absolutely. So these are good and thin.
So very
If
thin.
they weren't thin, you could pound them out, which is probably my least favorite part of chicken cordon bleu. If Chef James is watching, he helped me prepare for Christmas, and I think he pounded chicken for about 4 hours.
Wow.
So he was not having fun. So I would definitely recommend, if we could, to get pre-pounded chicken, just so you don't have to deal with that. And our chicken package lied. So there's supposed to be 5 pieces in here, but there's only 3. But the good thing is I bought extra just in case that happened. So we have a whole nother pack at campus that I can use too. Yep. All right. So we are going to go ahead and get started with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is season.
What's are you allowed to share what's in the secret seasoning?
Today it's just a mixture of herbs with salt and pepper. It's nothing fancy. We've got some oregano, some basil, some thyme, garlic, onion, that kind of thing, and then salt and pepper. So nothing too fancy, but it is important to layer your seasoning. So if I didn't season this chicken and just season the breading, we're missing out on a lot of flavor opportunity there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting my ham on my pieces of chicken.
Now I've never made any. Obviously, I've never made this before. I've done a lazy man's chicken cordon bleu, like a chicken cordon bleu casserole.
Sure.
I think it was.
Sure. Yeah, you can do it a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, you know. So you can do just about any different way. And if you're getting a good result, that's all that matters. And if you like it and it's good for your family, that's great. So all we're gonna do now is we're gonna give them a roll. So I'm going to try and roll kind of tight here, and then I'm going to pick it. The other important thing to remember is how many picks you put in each piece of chicken. So if I forget that I put 3 picks in this instead of 2, and I go to deep fry it, we're going to have a problem. So I'm going to try and really pay attention to that, and I'm going to put 3 picks in each chicken. And then I'm just going to put this to the side in my pan, and then we're just going to do it again. So when I finish rolling these up, I am going to put them in a kind of a holding pan basically. And then what I'm going to do is another secret step that you might forget about or think, oh, that's not that important. Yes, it is. So we are going to put these in the freezer. So these are going to get frozen for just a little bit, not all day. We're going to put them in.
Why do we freeze it? What's the advantage?
The advantage is it's going to stay together better. So if I don't freeze this, it's going to be very floppy and it's going to be really hard to bread.
Okay.
And I've done it before and it is not a good time and I kick myself in the butt every single time that I try to do it. So I'm going to freeze these for just a little bit so that way they have some time to kind of hold together. And then once I take them out of the freezer, I'm going to bread them. So you can bread it a lot of different ways. I've done it a lot of different ways, but kind of my favorite way, especially to get a really light, crispy breading, is just to dip it in milk and then to roll it in Italian breadcrumbs. And that is it. That's the way I like to do it. A lot of chefs will 3-step bread, which means you would dip it in egg wash, then flour, and then egg wash,
Okay.
and then you would put it in breadcrumbs. I just think it's too much. I really do. I just think it's too much. So I like to just do the really simple breading and it gets this really light, crispy breading. And then once I bread them, because I have access to a deep fryer, I'm just going to toss these in a deep fryer for just a little bit of time.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put them in an oven-safe pan and I'm just going to bake them until they are up to temperature and looking great. And then I'll just cover them with a white sauce, a white cheese sauce. So if I was responsible and didn't have chicken fingers, then I would use my leftover cheese and I would add that into my cheese sauce. So that is our chicken cordon bleu.
So you freeze them partially, right?
Yep.
So is there any, because, you know, like at Thanksgiving, they say don't deep fry a turkey if it's froze.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we want to make sure the toothpicks are out, but what about putting them in the deep fryer if they're still
Yeah,
out of
it's
the
okay.
freezer?
It's okay. You just need to be careful. You know, when you're using any sort of kitchen equipment, you have to be careful and you have to be mindful of what you're doing. So we're just seasoning the outside of these a little bit just because we can. And then we're done. So all of our food prep for today is done. This is all we have to do today. So that's what we're doing. We are going to go ahead and get our kitchen cleaned up here. And then we're going to move on.
So we've made pecan pie.
Yes.
We've done roasted veggies.
Yes.
Sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
And chicken cordon bleu, all from scratch to help a family celebrate their loved one's 80th birthday. Just one example of just how we're taking our culinary services to the next level here.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? Chef Abby?
No, I don't think so. I think they're good for today.
Did I earn my sous chef badge?
You did. You did a great job. All right. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.